Our next guest in the studio is Reverend Justo Gonzalez II. Reverend Gonzalez is Southwest Conference Minister for the Michigan United Church of Christ. He's here today to talk about life, spirituality, and a vision of justice for all. Justo, bienvenido. Welcome to Feel Like You Belong.
Gracias. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So you grew up in Buffalo, New York.
I did.
Yeah, talk about growing up and the family, Puerto Rican ancestry, bilingual, bicultural. Talk about what life was like in those early days.
Sure. My parents migrated to Buffalo, New York in the early 1950s. They were part of the first immigrant Latinx wave of folks in Western New York. My dad became a natural community leader based upon his work and advocacy. So for me growing up, it was not uncommon people knocking at our doors at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning, depending upon what the emergency was. And my dad was always sought after and given the honorary title of Dong, which is a title of respect in the community for his advocacy and his work. And my mom was kind of our spiritual roots. She was the one that taught us that advocacy is good, justice is good, but you always do it from a spiritual place, and prayer is essential. So I grew up in a neighborhood that was essentially owned by my family. Half of the block was uncles, aunts, cousins. The other half of the block was Italian immigrants, and our minority family was the Urbanics, the one Polish family that divided the Latinos from the Italians so we wouldn't kill each other. We were allowed to speak English outside of the home, but in la casa era español. It was Spanish.
Sure.
So you're brought up naturally bilingual and bicultural in the midst of that reality.
So it should be no surprise to anyone who has watched little Justo grow up and to take on his own mantle, where you're really wearing both the gift from your father and your mother in doing the work. And I also noted with some glee that your name, like your dad's name, Justo, is actually related to justice.
Correct. So my dad was not a religious man, but he was a spiritual man, and he modeled that service to others is service to God. So he was there in the journey of other people's lives, walking alongside of them. In Spanish, we would say acompañar, to accompany. And that's a powerful place to be. Mm-hmm. You don't lead. You don't take people's power and disempower them. You simply walk alongside as a spiritual companion. And even though he didn't do it from a faith perspective, it was extreme faith in action. And my mother, of course, was the prayer person. So those two combinations have made me who I am. I tend to believe that I am called to be a voice of justice and activism in our community, but always from a spiritual place, recognizing that when I do this, I'm doing it on behalf of the human dignity and the grace and the worth that is innate to individuals, that sometimes we forget as a culture that we are connected to each other and that we are all sisters and brothers no matter where we come from.
Now, growing up, your mom was Roman Catholic, so those are your roots, but take us along your spiritual journey, because that wasn't a straight line from there to now.
Sure. I grew up Roman Catholic, and to be honest, as a kid, I thought I would be a priest in the church. But I had a friend of mine who, Tito, your best buddies as kids, he went to a Spanish evangelical church. And quite frankly, I didn't understand the theology as a 13-year-old, but they had a full salsa band.
And your best friend.
And my best friend, and the music was rocking. You know, one of the things that I enjoy is the organ is okay, and it's part of the tradition of who we are in terms of our spirituality. But if you really want to move my soul as a Latino, in spite of the fact that I'm fully bilingual, I love the music. In Latino theology, we don't do spectator sport. And what I mean by that is on Sunday mornings in most churches, the pastor, the priest, the rabbi, the imam is the leader. People watch and respond when appropriately. In Spanish theological circles, liturgy is fiesta. It is the creation of a celebration. You are there to have a party. You are there to have an encounter. So you can't just be a spectator and respond. You have to be part of this experience and create. And I think that's a powerful thing. From there, ultimately, I ended up as a United Methodist in seminary and served a Latinx or Latino United Methodist Church, and ultimately left there and became a chaplain, and in 2013, the United Church of Christ, who I always thought would be a great fit for my spirituality, my activism, but I never pursued, came knocking on my door.
Well, and also because you knew their tradition, there's a whole lot of organ going on because of their musical roots. So
correct.
It didn't draw you in necessarily first, but their theology certainly did. And that eventually brought you to Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yes.
So talk about Ministerios Rios de Agua, or Agua Viva.
Yes. Ministerio Rio de Agua Viva, or Joy Like a River, is a new church plant in a working class, white, and Latino neighborhood in Wyoming on Havana Avenue Southwest. We are rooted in love, and we proclaim that we are an immigrant welcoming, open and affirming, sanctuary church. We also say that we are a community of faith, justice, advocacy, and action. See, because there's a lot of people that are into justice, but not advocacy. And there's a lot of people that are into justice and advocacy, but are not going to move to action. I believe that the gospel compels us and calls us to all aspects so that we touch people's lives, we empower people to claim their voice, their spirituality, and their power. Particularly Latinx people, Latino people who have been disenfranchised or told you're not good enough or worthy, or que tu vida no vale, that your life has no worth. It is important to show people, to empower people, to know that they have value and worth and that they can transform the world.
So you mentioned three different focuses or identities of Joy Like a River. Immigrant welcoming, ONA, and what was the third one? Can you dissect each of those?
Sure. As an immigrant welcoming community of faith, the United Church of Christ in 2017 at its National Synod spoke as a denomination inviting congregations to publicly affirm that we embrace and welcome all of God's people, and that immigrants, whether they are documented or underdocumented, and I specifically say underdocumented because all of our global brothers and sisters have papers. They all have birth certificates. They all have national identities that are equivalent to Social Securities. Depending upon what country, you'll get different words, from celular, identificación nacional, whatever it is. Some of our two-thirds brothers and sisters, because of war and abject poverty, may not have access to those as quickly as others, but they all have them. So it's important to say, no matter where you come from, no matter your accent, your skin color, your hairstyle, you are beautiful, you are welcomed, you are affirmed, you are God's child. And whether you believe in Jesus or the Buddha or Mohammed or Maya Angelou, or whether you're a secular humanist and believe in no particular faith but are a person of goodwill and justice, you are welcome within our midst. And then to be able to proclaim that we are a people that recognizes love. And love comes in many genders, in many fashions, and who am I? Even Pope Francis said, who am I to judge the love of another? So we want to say to people that no matter who you love, why you love them, The most important thing is that you love them, and you are welcome here, and you will find a community of faith that will love you and affirm you and embrace you and do your wedding in whatever gender or language that it needs to be done. And then to be a sanctuary church, to recognize that there is a biblical mandate from Hebrew scriptures. We can trace back to Leviticus when we are told that if a stranger enters your community, you are to treat them like familia, as one of yours, not as a I'm better, you're worse, I'm the cool dude, and you're the other, but to say, bienvenidos, welcome. You are part of the family.
And I know that there in Scripture there are something like 95 passages that specifically say there's a moral imperative to welcoming the stranger, but there are some denominational groups that choose to, pick and choose what they want to take and just say, no, we're not going there.
Right. I always chuckle because I haven't met a church yet that says everyone is welcome. But that's when you get there, you find all the modifier clauses. And we don't have modifier clauses. We're going to embrace you and welcome you and offer you grace, goodness, compassion, and love simply because of who you are. Yesterday has passed. I don't need to know your yesterdays. You know them. I want to meet you today. I want to offer you love and grace. Sanctuary is a safe and sacred space. This administration has decided to declare a war against immigrants. Indeed, yesterday there was a new national article that ICE has cleared the pathway to detain more pregnant women and keep them in detention. Somebody has to stand up and say there is a place of welcome. And actually this morning I put that on our Facebook page. Pregnant, underdocumented women, pregnant women are always welcome in our sanctuary space. We have 10 beds that we will provide safe and sacred space, that where we will not allow ICE to come in, where we will not allow the government to abuse you, to mistreat you, to deport you simply because you are who you are.
And you were just in the Grand Rapids Press this past week on the front page.
Yes, I mean, we've taken some bold, innovative strategies. Regrettably, we're the first sanctuary church in the Grand Rapids metropolitan area. My hope and my prayer is that as my father modeled for me, service to others is service to God, that Joy Like a River, or Ministerio Rio de Agua Viva, will model for other communities of faith and communions to open the doors, to say, you are welcome, no matter who you are. We're not going to ask questions about your past. We're just going to love you, embrace you, and welcome you. And by the way, I should say the Ministerio Rio de Agua Viva, or Joy Like a River, is a multilingual, multicultural, urban and suburban community of faith. So no matter who you are, you're going to find something that you like. We have people from the Philippines, from the Dominican Republic, from Cuba, from Mexico, Americans like me, Puerto Ricans like me. We're all in this together, and it's not just one ethnic group, but the multicultural beauty of our diversity.
So how do people find your church online?
You can find us through Facebook. You can also find me at my personal, and you can give me a call. I don't have a problem calling.
Okay, we can put that on the screen for our viewers.
Sure.
We have to wrap up in just a moment, but I noticed among your many credentials and degrees, you're trained in various aspects of theology and divinity. You also have a master's degree in tomfoolery. What's that about?
I studied improv comedy for a year. Part of life is not taking yourself so seriously and learning how to laugh and play. So I've actually had the opportunity to do improv comedy shows. I taught improv comedy to kids in the community at no cost to them. And one of the things that we're looking for this summer is to offer an improv comedy camp out of the church for a week for the kids. Life is too serious. We become adults and we forget how to play. I believe play is essential to good quality life and to enjoying what you do.
Last word to take us out. The theme of our show is belonging. What does belonging mean to you?
It's about creating community, recognizing that all of us are interconnected, that if we pay attention, we have much more in common to each other than that which would separate us. To recognizing that the sacred is within you and me and all of us, and that we are called to be sisters and brothers in this world, in this city, in our neighborhoods, and in our communities.
That's fantastic. We're going to have to leave it there, but I want to thank you so much for coming by and sharing your story with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. If you're watching on TV, stay tuned for our following segments on information and humor. If you're watching us on the internet, I hope you will check out our other conversations with the passionate voices who make these United States a more inclusive place.